I do want to build on what Gus talked about last week. I hope you're here last week. But if you weren't, Gus talked about Jesus being the cornerstone, the foundation. If you don't build on a strong foundation, your house is doomed. And Jesus says, I am the foundation. I am the cornerstone. You need to build on me. The other thing Jesus said was, I need you to be a doer and not just a hearer of the word, right? Do you know anybody that's just a hearer of things and they don't actually do anything, right? There's no effort involved. Jesus says, look, you need to build upon me, and you actually need to be a doer to build anything. You got to get out there and you got to do things. And so that got me thinking for this message. It wasn't supposed to be right after his, but God has a plan for that. That got me thinking. And so this sermon is really, build what? Build what? What's the purpose? What meaning do I have in my life? What's the purpose of life? About 10 years ago, I read a book by Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor. He survived several Holocaust camps, including Auschwitz. He made it out alive. His wife, who was pregnant at the time with their first child, did not make it out alive. Neither did either of his parents, none of his immediate family, none of his friends. He came out of the last concentration camp with no friends and no family that had survived. And he witnessed, of course, terrible atrocities inside. And he wrote this book about what's the meaning? Man's Search for Meaning. That's the title. If you want to read it, I recommend it. Man's Search for Meaning. What's the meaning in all of this? And the book became incredibly popular. And later, he would always be asked, especially by, U.S. journalists in particular, like, oh, what do you feel about this success? Are you happy with the success of your book? And his response was always, the commercial success of my book tells me that there's incredible misery in this world. Well, what are you talking about? And he would say, the fact that millions of people reach or have reached for a book that tries to tell them the purpose and meaning of their life tells me it's a question that burns under their fingernails. Peter tries to give us a picture of that today, right? So let's get into it. The foundation. What do we build? What's the purpose? What's the meaning? Peter says, 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 1. Gus normally has us stand, but I'm going to go real slow through about 8 verses, so you're going to have to sit, okay? Peter says, so put away all malice and all deceit and hypocrisy and envy and all slander. So this message is about, this, when Peter wrote this is about, it would be 1,800 years ago or something like that, almost 2,000 years ago. And Peter's saying very clearly, step 1, delete your social media. Pause for awkward laughter. There it is. Put away all that stuff. Step 1, you want to build something? You want to know purpose and you want meaning? Step 1, you got to put some things out of your life before you're ready to build. Okay? Now, I don't use a lot of those words up there very often, so I had to look them up, okay? Put away all malice. I kind of think malice is a bad thing. Malice is the intent. Malice is the intent to do evil, particularly against somebody else. It's not accidental sin. Malice is the intent or purpose to do evil. You got to put it away. All deceit. Now, deceit comes in a couple of different forms, right? I can tell you a flat-out lie. I can tell you a half-truth. I can keep quiet when you're telling me I know something that's not true, right? Deceit comes in some different forms. The number one person that we are really good at lying to is ourselves. And maybe you're not like me, but I am very good at lying to me. Extremely good, right? Like, I got this. I can do that. I can do that, this, that. Put it away. Hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is claiming to have high moral standards that your behavior doesn't match. Now, we all hate that, right? Can we agree on that? That's claiming to have this high moral standards that your behavior doesn't actually match. That's a hothead telling me to keep cool, right? That's the known liar calling me a liar. That's a doctor who smokes and drinks and is in god-awful shape telling me it's time to eat healthy and lose weight. You hypocrite, right? Envy. Envy is the want or desire to have what you think, I'll say that again, you think perhaps somebody else has. Now, social media is good with a lot of different things, but there's a lot of us out there who have the eye of envy on some fake Facebook lives right now. It's not real, but it's designed in a way to encourage envy. Put it away. It's not good. You can't build if you've got those core things in you. And the last thing is slander. Peter talks about here. Slander. Slander is the intent of saying something untrue for the purpose of damaging your reputation. Right? Put it away. We like it when somebody does it against us, right? Put it away. Do you know that it's actually interesting? Psychiatrists have found that when you tend to listen to gossip from somebody else, you tend to kind of attribute what they're talking to that person. Somebody's coming to me and telling me how Becky's a monster. I'm kind of subconsciously attaching those traits to whoever's talking to me about it. Put it away. Put it away. You cannot build on the firm foundation if you have these things in your life first and foremost. That's what Peter's saying, okay? We haven't even talked about purpose and meaning and what we're going to build yet. We're just saying, Peter's saying, first off, get yourself ready for it. Verse 2, I promise we'll pick up the pace. That's just one verse. Verse 2, like newborn infants long for the pure spiritual milk, that by it you may grow up into salvation. And then verse 3 there's, if indeed you have tasted that the Lord is good. Wait, what? One of our 3 kids, that's his saying. That's his phrase. Have you ever met somebody that just kind of listens to half of what you're ever saying? Right? Just kind of, But if they find something where you're talking about them or you're talking about what they find interesting, they go, wait, what? This is a wait, what moment, right? Like newborn infants long for the pure spiritual milk of their mother, Peter's creating a metaphor here. And what he's saying is, you know how babies, they don't know anything on their birthday, right? They're newborn. But by instinct, they know that mother's milk gives life, right? How do they know that? It's imprinted in them. By instinct, they know mother's milk gives life. Peter's saying, so too, if you turned away your distractions, if you focused internal, if you thought, if you listened in quiet to yourself, you would hear that you are naturally drawn to the Father. The Father is calling you. Just like a newborn baby is drawn to mother's milk, you are drawn to the Father. But you can't stay there. You have to grow up into salvation once you've tasted that it's good. He uses that same metaphor there. But tasted that it's good, it can also be interpreted as once you know that the word is true and you've tested it, right? It's time to grow up into salvation. The boys, a couple months ago, they were watching the movie Grown Ups. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but there's a spot in the movie Grown Ups where this like 7 or 8 year old kid is still breastfeeding. And it's funny because it's wrong, right? It's funny in the movie because like, that's not right, right? You can't stay that infant Christian forever. You got to grow up. That is amazing, right? Amazing grace that you came to Christ. Maybe it was for God so loved the world. That's why you're here. You know, you've been baptized, right? The prodigal's returned. You're here, but you cannot stay that way. No more than a baby can stay on mother's milk. You have to grow up into salvation. You have to build something. So you start to see the process here. Build what? Build what? Build what? Well, wait a minute. First, you need to put away a lot of things about yourself. Right? Then you need to recognize your need for the Father and your need to build. And then we'll take it to verse 4 then. As you come to him, who's him? It's not a trick question. It's Jesus. Right? As you come to him, a living stone. Now, isn't that a cool nickname? As you come to him, a living stone rejected by men. Oh, we're just coming out of Easter, right? We know all about that living stone being rejected by men, don't we? Suffered and crucified. But in the sight of God, chosen and precious. Do you know that you are chosen and precious in the sight of God too? You know, it floors me, but there's a lot of people that don't think they're chosen and they're precious. Peter says, you want the picture of it? The Son is chosen and precious to me, and so are you. And you're going to see that in the next verse. Okay? But as you come to him, a living stone, go ahead, verse 5. I'll wait. You yourselves, like living stones, are being built up as a spiritual house to be a holy priesthood, to offer spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. So Christ is a foundation. And on top of him is Peter. It's actually, Peter's nickname is the Rock, right? That's the original rock. And his name's not Dwayne, it's Peter, right? Can you smell what the rock is cooking, right? You have the foundation, there's Christ. And on him is Peter, right? Then you have, Matthew, you've got Luke, you've got John, you've got the apostles. And you're like, I'm not an apostle. No, but you want to know the purpose that God has if you're a Christian is that Christ is the living stone. Your job is to make you into a living stone because you're the next stone. You understand? We're building something here. We're building something here. You get to decide if you want to be in the building. But if you do, we are building something here. You are going to be a living stone. And that's an amazing thing because just like you are built on perhaps somebody else that brought you to the faith, somebody now can build on you. How are they going to know without you? How are they going to believe without you? You're the next living stone on that. That's the purpose and the meaning. So you're like, all right, hopefully you're starting to get a general picture of it here. I got to put away things about myself. I've got to do things. I got to build myself. I'm building myself into something called the living stone. What is that? What's that purpose flow to? Well, in the Bible, Jesus summarizes in the New Testament, he summarizes the Bible this way. He says, look, every law, every prophet can be summarized into two things. Everything kind of fits into these two categories. Love the Lord with all your heart, all your mind, and all your soul, and treat your neighbor as yourself. Right? On this, all of the prophet and all of the law is built. And then in the book of John, he takes it one step further. He says, I give you this new command. As I have loved you, you are to love one another. What am I building? I'm building the living stone. What is the living stone? What is the purpose? If you're a Christian, the purpose of your life is to reflect the glory of God, to serve God. Well, how do I serve God, Seth? You serve the people that he has put in your life. You know, there's a parable where Jesus actually rejects people who say they're Christians. And in the parable, you know, they get to the time of judgment, and the master actually tells them, you know, I was thirsty and you gave me nothing to drink. I was hungry, you didn't feed me. I was naked, you didn't clothe me. I was in prison, you didn't come and see me. And they said to the master, when did we ever see you thirsty or hungry or, you know, in prison? And Jesus says to them, if you've done it for the least of these, you've done it for me. Starting to get the picture? The purpose of your life is to serve others. Now, I'm not telling you to do for other people what they should and can be doing for themselves. That's actually bad for people, right? You want to ruin a kid? Do everything for them. Okay? I wish somebody had told us that about 16 years ago, right? I'm just kidding. Our kids are good. But that's a new parents really need to know. Like, right? Don't do something for the kid that the kids should be doing for themselves, because it's not good for them. But in love, we are to be serving God. Well, how can I serve God? I'm going to serve what God has made. So the living stone, see, in the world, we tend to think your purpose is tied to your profession, right? What are you building? What's your kingdom here? We feel to think meaning is tied to material things, right? And God says the purpose of your life has nothing to do with where you'll live, what your job is, how much money you make, how many kids you're going to have. That has nothing to do with it. The meaning of life is to take what you have and build upon. What are you doing now with it? You want meaning? It has nothing to do with material. It has everything to do with the effort that you build towards Christ. Because in the next verse 6, for it stands in Scripture, behold, I am laying in Zion a cornerstone, chosen and precious, and whoever believes in him will not be put to shame. But verse 7 says, so the honor is for you who believe, but for those who do not believe, the stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. And in verse 8, it says, and the stone of stumbling and a rock of offense, they stumble because they disobey the word as they were destined to do. In the book of Daniel, all right, this is Old Testament stuff. In the book of Daniel, Daniel is serving a non-Christian king. The king's name is Nebuchadnezzar. Don't ask me to spell it. I can barely pronounce it. Nebuchadnezzar. And Nebuchadnezzar has a dream that terrifies him. It's a nightmare that terrifies him. And he wants to test his wise men, quote unquote. So he says, this dream terrified me. You need to tell me what the dream is, wise men. I'm not going to tell you what it is. And then you need to tell me its interpretation. And of course, nobody could do it. Nobody could do it, but God gave Daniel the interpretation. And this is what he says in the book of Daniel. And in the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed, nor shall the kingdom be left to another people. Next verse. It shall break in pieces all these kingdoms and bring them to an end, and it shall stand forever. Just as you saw that a stone, so this is the dream Nebuchadnezzar had. Just as you saw in your dream, basically, a stone was cut from a mountain by no human hand, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold. A great God has made known to the king what shall be after this. the dream is certain, and its interpretation sure. So Nebuchadnezzar has this dream. And in this dream, he sees this huge statue. And its head is made of gold. And then it goes from silver. And then it goes to bronze and iron. So it goes from kind of more valuable to less valuable as it goes from its head to its feet. And its feet are actually made of bronze and clay. Not very strong. And as Nebuchadnezzar dreams, he sees this stone cut away from a mountain, and it smashes the statue. But not just the feet is where it hits where it's weak. It smashes the whole thing into pieces, and it's all dust, and it all blows away. And Daniel tells the king this: eventually, those not aligned with God will be smashed by this stone. This living stone. This is a prophecy that Daniel's making well before Christ. Daniel's talking about revelation here. This stone's going to be cut out of this mountain. It's going to smash all the earthly kingdoms. They'll be blown away. And nothing will be left except the stone. Now, I usually quote Johnny Cash in my communion meditations. But today I'm going to hit you with some Metallica. Wish I may, wish I might, have this I wish tonight. Are you satisfied? Dig for gold, dig for fame, you dig to make your name. Are you pacified? All the wants you waste, all the things you've chased, then it all crashes down, and you break your crown. And you point your finger, but there's no one around. I just want one thing, just to play the king. But the castle's crumbled, and you're left with just a name. Where's your crown, King Nothing? That's what it is. You're built upon Christ, or you can be King Nothing. What are we building towards? Now, as I try to put some practical pieces on this, I thought about, okay, the purpose of the life is to serve others, to love one another. We're building, but it's still kind of confusing, some of the pitfalls that we can get into. So I brought this illustration. If it helps, it helps. If not, throw it out, okay? But this is one of those Lego puzzles. You ever put these together? There's been some inflation since the last time Summer and I bought these things, because this was $32. It's 456 pieces, and I know Liv and I put together one years and years ago that was like 2,000 pieces. It took like 3 days, and it didn't cost near $32. But anyway, when you're building a puzzle, there's 3 parts. There's the picture, there's the process, and there's the pieces, okay? So I need to build into a living stone. Got it, Seth. I need to put away some things about myself. Got it, all right? I need to give effort. Got it, okay. But there's things I can still get trapped up on, okay? So here's our practicality part. When you put together a puzzle, you got the picture, you got the process, and you got the pieces. The first thing that we kind of get wrong about the pieces, go ahead and put both of them up there. Failing to recognize that our life comes in pieces, and failing to appreciate the pieces you've been given. Right? Here's what I got, right? No. Here's your 75-page booklet, and there's what you got. That didn't break the first time around, so hitting the floor on the first sermon must have busted that package. Good thing I'm not barefoot. The pieces, right? Well, what do we say to ourselves, okay? We say, oh, I'm newly married. This is great. We think that we get the picture. You don't get the picture, do you? You get the pieces. You don't get the picture. You never touch the picture. Does that make sense? I want to have a good marriage. Okay, well, hold a good marriage in your hands. You don't get that. All you ever touch is the pieces. You need to stop living in fairy tale land, right? Nothing happens without effort going into it. And God's saying you need to build, because when you get married, you don't just get perfect picture, you get pieces, right? Or you say, hey, I've just had a kid. I'm going to raise that kid. She's going to be a world beater. Like, can you get her to eat broccoli? You don't get the picture. You get the pieces. You get the pieces, all right? And a lot of us are failing to recognize that this is all we get to touch. You understand? We don't touch the process. The process is an idea. It's a thing that we do. We don't get to touch the picture. Hopefully we have it in our mind and we'll talk about it. This is all you have. And the other thing we fail to appreciate is we don't really appreciate the pieces we've been given. Right? We say, if you love me, you got to accept that, I've decided that this is my, I'm not going to be Iron Man, I'm going to be Scooby-Doo. Like, no, I'm sorry. You didn't get Scooby-Doo parts. You got Iron Man. That's what you got. Like me personally, I would have loved if God would have given me the Usain Bolt, Olympic sprinter package. That's awesome, right? Little Barcelona track out there. No. He's like, Seth, you get the pieces, that mascot from the Lucky Charms commercial, that leprechaun, right? Now I can throw a fit and say, and we'll talk about that in the process. I'm not moving forward because I don't like my pieces. That's all you get. And you say, Seth, let's be serious now. I've come from abuse. I've lost people. My life's not the same as it was years ago, and I'm sorry, and that's true. But all you have is the pieces. That's what you have to work with. You got to build with what God has given you. You got to appreciate what God has given you. You've got the process, okay? You've got the process, which is the next one. Go ahead and put both of them up there. So, how can we get this wrong? Well, first thing we can do is we can follow the wrong instructions. If I follow the wrong instructions, I can build and build and build, but I'm not going to get Iron Man Hulkbuster, right? 75 pages in here. It's amazing. We want our life to turn out a certain way, but we don't follow the process God has put in place for us, right? The rule's not because he hates us, but because he wants you to end up with the Hulkbuster, Iron Man, right? Failing to give effort, right? In the process, we might fail to give effort. So let's say I'm upset that I'm not the Usain Bolt Olympic sprinter package. So I'm like, I'm just not going to give effort. That's a dangerous proposition. In the book of Matthew and then in Luke, there's the parable of the talents, okay? The parable of the talents. The parable of the talents is the master gives different talents to different people. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. Different people do different things. Some people, come from money. Some people don't come from money. Some people have this. Some people don't have that. Some people are tall. Some are short. Some have very serious health issues. Some do not. We've been given something, okay? The first person goes out and he doubles what he has, and he's been given a lot. The master's pleased with it. Second person's given very little, but he doubles it, and the master is very happy. And the third person says, God, I know you were a hard man, and your judgment is harsh. You gave me these pieces. I didn't want to mess it up. I don't want to mess it up. So here you go. I'm going to give you back every part's there. Count it all up. And the consequence for that person in that parable is terrifying. Because God says, your purpose is to build towards me. Where's that effort? I tell my freshman football players, I will forgive any mistake that you make on the field. All right? You make too many mistakes, you won't be on the field. But I will forgive any mistake on the field. But one thing that I will not forgive is lack of effort. You understand? I can forgive a lot of things, but I will not forgive you for no effort. And what's amazing is that lines up exactly to what the parable of the talents says. I want something from you. You've been giving something, some kind of pieces. You have blessings in your life. Where is the effort towards building that? Right? If you say it has nothing to do with money or possessions or people, it has everything to do with what kind of person you are and how you treat people and how you love people. You can't give any effort towards that? The consequence for that is serious. And the last thing is the picture. We distort the picture. And that's a serious thing to do. Now the world will say, follow your heart and nothing else, right? That's Leonard Skinner's Simple Man. But I tell you, if I followed my heart and nothing else, there'd be some trouble. There'd be some trouble, right? So I've already hit you with a Metallica quote. I'm going to hit you with, he's a Christian now, Dave from Megadeth. You take a mortal man, you put him in control. Watch him become a god. Watch people's heads roll. You're like, what are you talking about? You take a look at it. Any collectivist government that has ever been, you see how they treat their people. The more power gets centralized, I don't care if you got the best sounding manifesto about loving one another in the world. The more power gets concentrated in one person, the worse that person becomes. Follow your heart and nothing else? Well, okay. I want to be an NBA player. How's that going to work out for me? Got 42 and short and not athletic. It's not going to work out well, right? We distort the picture. That's not the picture God has for you. He says, I don't care about that. I'll use you where you are, but you need to give effort and you need to build towards the love. You need to build into that living stone. That's the purpose of your life. Doesn't matter what's happened. Doesn't matter how you feel. I mean, think about that. I don't feel like doing this today. Doesn't matter. Okay? That's not what matters. The Army and the Navy, they had an issue. Okay? They had an issue that their missions were not a success because the reality is when fighting started, there was just too many things they couldn't account for. Like the Army was giving their Special Forces teams 45-page documents about how to capture a hill. Like 45 pages long. And they were finding out there's just too many variables they couldn't account for. It's like what Mike Tyson says, everybody's got a plan on how to fight me till they get hit in the face, right? And the plan goes out the window. So what Special Forces did is of course, you got those bureaucrats, so you got to keep the 45-page document. But they started to put on the top what they call commander's intent. It's one sentence. Nothing interferes with that sentence. So the top of the commander's intent might be capture Hill 345. Now here's how we think you ought to do it. Option A, option B, option C. But when things start flying or the fog's in or you're in the wrong position or something happens you don't expect, you need to default to commander's intent. Default to commander's intent. The commander intent that God has for you is to repent, be baptized, and build. Do you understand? It's not repent, be baptized, and then just do nothing. You have to build. You have to recognize these are the pieces that I've been given. These are the things that I have. Right? The purpose of my life is to reflect the glory of God and to serve others. And if you do that and you give effort, I promise you, you will be held in high esteem like the first two in the parable of the talents. Think of that this week as we build. Thank you.